video, we're going to be talking about setting up alerts within SQL Compliance Manager. And, SQL Compliance Manager, obviously, if you maybe it's not obvious, but SQL Compliance Manager, what this tool is all about is auditing. So tracking changes that happen within SQL Server. And SQL Server can be very noisy, right? So there's a lot of data that we're collecting within an audit on a SQL Server instance. Some of that data, though, may be important enough that you want to raise an alert around it. So you don't have to alert on everything. And one of the really nice things about Compliance Manager is you have a lot of configuration, a lot of filtering around alerting so that you can pick and choose what it is that, what happens that you want outside of the tool that maybe show up in your inbox or get ingested by other systems like a SIM, right? So when you want to set up an alert, under the administration section, you'll see alert rules. Event alerts are primarily what people are going to use. In another video, we'll talk about data alerts and status alerts. But when we set up an event alert, the first thing that you need to determine is what type of event do you want to alert off of. And if you see, there are broad categories. So security change as a general idea, right? Schema change, DDL, DML, login activity. Right, so you could just key off of something very broad. If a security change occurs, do something. On the other hand, you can get very specific, right? So if a DDL create index or, inline function or, you name it, right? There's a lot of subcategories within these broader categories that you could key off of for your alerting. And this one will do something really simple that I think is a basic alert that most people are going to build. And that would be any kind of security change that happens on the sysadmin role, right? So first and foremost, security change, right? So if a security change occurs, and frankly, I'm not so much concerned about which SQL Server, a database doesn't even count here. And hostname doesn't really matter that much to me, but it may to you, right? So I could filter on those things, but really what I'm concerned about is the object, in this case, which is a role, sysadmin. So if sysadmin role listed, right? So if I said except listed, what this would mean is this alert's going to trigger if a security change happens on anything other than sysadmin. So that's a really nice concept, right? You may have, if the sysadmin role is changed by this certain user, we don't care. If the sysadmin role is changed by other users, we do. And I'll talk about how you do that later on. But you have this idea of listed or except listed. So you can either have an inclusion or exclusion filter around either the event type, the server, the host, the user, all those sorts of things. So we're just going to say any security change that happens on the sysadmin role, and then I could get tricky with it, right? So I could say login name, and it's not this user. So maybe you have a designated user that changes that account, so you'll put in that user and say except listed. In this case, we're just going to say generically speaking, if a security change happens to sysadmin role, we want to be notified. But you could key off application, login, access check passed, meaning were they successful, right? Someone tried to change the sysadmin role, but they got access denied, right? You could alert on that. That concept either passed, yes or no. Privileged user, yes or no. Individual privileged username. Row count is an option. What we mean by that is it wouldn't really be applicable in this scenario, but let's say you're running an alert on a select. So someone selects the credit card table and pulls back 2 rows. Okay, good deal. That's all right. Someone runs a select on a credit card table and pulls back 1,000,000 rows. That's a red flag. We want to be notified on it. So you have those kind of options. And then ultimately you have timing. So in this example, 24/7, right? If the sysadmin role changes at any time at all, I want to know. But you may have something like a schema change alert, right? Schema change on a Monday afternoon, that's a no-no, alert me. Schema change during our change control window, which you could define here, don't alert me. So you have those options. And then ultimately, what is this alert going to manifest as? Well, it's going to be an email in my case. It's also going to be an event log entry, and it's going to be an SNMP trap. So 3 different types of notification will happen simultaneously. Notice that email notification is what I'm choosing, but there was an option for email summary. Email summary is a little bit different concept. So with an email notification, the top option, that just means when this happens, send an email. And you may have 10 or 15 things that happen in a minute and you get 10 or 15 emails. On the other hand, maybe I don't like that. I would rather just get a summarized view of all the alerts that happened within a window of time. So the default would be 30 minutes. So every 30 minutes, if an alert happened within that window, we would send a summary of those alerts, right? That's the idea there. But generally speaking, something like this, I would probably want an individualized email. specify the address. So, David at IDERA.com. And then ultimately, um, the alert message can also be manipulated. And out of the box, it's pretty simple. Severe alert on whatever instance name, right? And then event type. Security change occurred on this server, this instance at this time. But what I might want to also know is, oh, what machine did they come from, right? So these guys over here are variables, and you can pick and choose which variables you want to see within the alert text. Double clicking will introduce it either in the subject or the body. Subject and body is kind of a cheat. So when I'm writing the Windows event log, the top line will be the title, the message will be below. But in an email, this would be the subject, this would be the body. So, I want maybe the host name, maybe I want the SQL text, maybe I want the object name, right? So I can just double click and it will put those variables in, and I can type whatever I want around those variables to, put some context around it. And then ultimately, you give it a name. So we call this sysadmin changes, and then set of severity, probably we'll say that's a severe alert, right? So setting up the alert rule is pretty simple. You can enable, disable from here, hit finish. Now, once an alert is generated, you can click on the alerts tab. I've already filtered this down, but you can see there's only two of them, right? So there is really no difference between this view of the event and what I might be able to find in like this view. On the other hand, what it's doing is segregating those alertable events into its own view so you can find them easier. And then finally, you do have the ability to report. So there's data alerts, event alert, status alert reporting that's all available for you as well. So alerts in SQL Compliance Manager are pretty straightforward, but at the same time, they offer a lot of power, right? If you need to have some event that happens in Compliance Manager out to a SIM, right to the event log, and then that SIM can scrape that. Or maybe your SIM accepts SMP traps directly, you can do that as well. One little side note around alerting is if you've not set any alerts up before, you may need to come in and configure your mail server. So under the alerting dropdown, configure your trap location where you want to send them to. And then I guess finally, you can groom alerts. So any alerts that are old, you can groom those out and clean them up a little bit. I appreciate everybody's time today. Hopefully this was helpful. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Take care.